So we're focusing there on the left. There's a headscarp right there. It's about 2 feet. So what we're able to do is we could go in 3D model it, and then we can pull that into Open Rows Designer, cut cross sections. We can make a 2D map. We can overlay that 2D map over the design plans, see where the edge of the disturb limits, the property line is. With the cross section, we can see how much room we have to lay that slope back. Do they need to buy more property? There's several examples and questions that be answered with this data, and it's very we can do it very quickly and safely, so we don't have to climb that and take shots on top of the hill and bottom of the hill. So we got some ground control points about midways up, just to give us some differences in elevations with the ground shots.
And speaking from experience of climbing that hill, there was a lot of difference in going to those ground control points where they're at than there was going all the way up to the top of the slide.
Coming up here, we have the example of the plan view of the landslide with the 2D map. So you can see the disturb limits, the property line. And then here's the overlaid with the proposed cross section, so the designer can go through and check was the slope actually built to design, and then you can see the headscarp. Can they lay a new slope in there to stay within the property line? Several questions can be answered from this pretty quickly. This is actually, let's see here, give me just a second. All right, here's an example. This is actually back on that last project in Russell County. So you can take that data and then we can do checks, periodic checks. We usually fly a project between every 2 weeks, once a month. And then we can go in and check their slopes and how much fill they have left and how much fill's been placed. Very, very handy.
So I guess changing gears a little bit here. Here's an example of a 3D model that we done for our traffic section. What happened here? There was a pole on the bottom left of your screen that got knocked down due to an accident, and the traffic engineer asked us to go out and get an accurate representation of what was there. So we went out, we shut the road down. I think it was 3 minutes and 45 seconds is how long we went to. This is all in US 27 here in Somerset. If anyone's ever been here, you realize there's a traffic signal about every 6 feet. So we went to the 2 traffic signals on each side of this one and held the red timing on it. And then we put employees in each of the entrances to stop traffic so we could do this safely. We also had to file a NOTAM because this is in a no-fly zone with a hospital having an aircraft that comes and goes from it, which is about 1/4 of a mile away from this particular intersection. So like I said, we shut this down for about 3.5 minutes, and we were able to generate this model. We were able to document the height of the signal heads, the height of the connection points, the height of the poles. They were able to, for I guess what you would say legal purposes, able to document all of the traffic control devices that were currently there on that date, which would not have changed from the accident date, as well as just, and you'll have to forgive me for maybe not knowing the proper terminology, but there's a SALSA program that I think traffic operation uses that does something to judge the pole heights versus the sag of the span, and they were able to use our data to enter into that program to see the pole height that needed to be put back up to come to current standards versus the old standards.
Versus having a guy.
Yeah.
Versus having a guy in a bucket truck taking measurements.
So next, we use this for a maintenance project we had. This is at Wolf Creek Dam. Right after you cross Wolf Creek Dam on 127, there is this huge rock face that you're looking at here that is right beside the roadway. And about a year and a half before this, we had a significant rock fall come off this into US 127, which effectively put it to a one-lane road for about a year with temporary traffic signals. So through an agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as well as us and a couple other entities, we were able to, with a maintenance project, go down there and remove a significant portion of this. Well, this was like I said, a maintenance project. So we had a specific budget that we were able to use for this, and we were paying quantity on this. So we were only able to essentially work until the money was gone. With the drone, we were able to get them extremely close to when they needed to start paying attention as to cutting the money off or cutting the work off for the contractor as to not being able to go over our budget. Now here, we've switched kind of back to 461. One of our consultants with that 461 project, HMB, created this virtual drive-through or fly-through on the left that they were putting out as like a public information campaign. We were able to go out with the drone. We actually did this Monday, and we fly through that project as closely to their flight path as what we can get, because a drone versus a virtual fly-through is never going to be identical. But it gives a real comparative to our engineers as well as the public as to what the project's going to be versus what it is now. And we're able to kind of just for our own benefit, fly through there and see the new road as to what it's going to be versus what it is now. This is really handy. This is probably the first one of these that we've been able to get. But if you notice during this fly through, you were able to actually see the disturb limits going out to where you would anticipate the roadway going. The first time we actually did this fly through, it was not like that, and it was still the old road, and it was completely different. So we're trying to document this on a repetitive basis so we can have those archives to go back and look at and just kind of see the progress. We'll be able to judge the effectiveness of the contractor that is actually there on the scene. We try, well, our construction inspectors are keeping an accurate record of the different weather conditions that are going on there, and we can essentially compare the weather conditions to the videos and the 3D models that we're producing and kind of get a realistic view of their effectiveness.
This whole virtual project, this delivery, the virtual public involvement, it's something that federal agencies are really pushing. So we've, since this is a federally funded project, we really pushed to try to develop that virtual display, so that way it's just really easy for the public to figure out what it's going to look like versus what it is currently. And we're getting better at this.
Some of this stuff is still pretty new to us, and we're still on trial and error with some of it at this point. So we're hoping to advance it significantly. So here is some lighting comparisons that we did. We got asked by Ted in traffic to go to D7, and there was a statewide LED initiative to to switch all of our roadway lighting from incandescent bulbs or high pressure sodium bulbs over to LED. So we went up one night, and the contractor had actually fixed part of this interchange. If you notice, the top part of your screen will have LEDs. The bottom part is still incandescent. So this was we're able to document how, I guess, visually document a comparative between the LED and the incandescent. And then Ted was able to give a comparison with the amount of, projected electricity usage for LED versus the high pressure sodium bulb. And we were able to present that to central office folks so they could, I guess, kind of look at how that project was going to be beneficial to the taxpayers of the Commonwealth. We have several of these comparatives. This next one is Man of War and I-75, and you can notice there's one ramp there that has the LEDs on it. The other bit of the interchange does not. But we had to acquire a night waiver to fly these. That's a little bit of a dwelling into a rabbit hole. There's a little bit more to just going out and doing some of the stuff with the drone than comes to mind. But there are several waivers that you can apply for and get. But obviously we were able to obtain those, so they're not, uberly difficult.
So another thing that we've been working on a lot of these construction projects in our area is studying some different types of software and doing this digital project delivery initiative, especially some of these federal projects they're pushing to have the digital documentation. And they're basically trying to get not real time, but trying to keep periodic updates, just documentation of projects. So one of the softwares that we first started with was DataBIM. It's been a very, very, very good software. We've started going through it for the last about 6 months now. Mm-hmm. And about every 2 weeks to a month, we go out and fly the project. And that software, so we'll take the ground control points, we'll fly the project, and we upload it to a cloud-based system. And that system will process all the photographs, and it'll store everything on the cloud. The benefit of it is the comparison between anybody can take measurements that has access to the software. It's an online based software. Can go in, take volume measurements. They could take erosion control. They can measure the surface area of those devices. They can check alignments, and you can also check comparisons between one flight and the next. So as you can see in this example, you can see a March 9th flight versus April 13th flight and see what's changed from one side to the other. So as you shift and zoom around the screen, it'll automatically update left and right of that line to show you the changes. So it's great for progress tracking. Be awesome for progress meetings, construction meetings. But anyway, this is what we're trying to get towards the on-site technicians to the point where they can fly it weekly or bi-weekly when they need, or they see a bunch of change, and they can track it and have volumes at their disposal, because this software is supposed to process it within 24 hours. It's usually well within 12 hours. This project, it's a 4-mile segment. It takes about 3,000 photographs to capture all the area of the 4-mile section. This one section right here, though, it's a half mile, but it's probably 80 plus acres with this interchange that's going on. But this is the first software that we started pressing into. The next software, it's a little bit different. So what it's doing is it's called TopoDot, and it'll do automated line work. Give it just a second. There we go. And it's awesome. So once you develop your your point cloud and get everything smooth the way you want it. You import in this software and it'll go through and it'll lay ground points every foot, every 5 feet, however you choose fit, and then go in and it'll help smooth everything out, the surface out. It'll also lay your edge of curbs, your top of curbs, and do it automatically for you. It'll help you draw your lane lines. There's some digital process in there to where automated process to where you basically get it started, and through the picture and the point cloud, it'll actually trace it out for you. And you can go back and do quality control. Very beneficial software and has a lot of potential that we're pushing into. The next one is similar to Pix4D that we use most often is context capture. It's a Bentley software. The biggest benefit to this software is a tool called scalable mesh. It's an not tool, it's an output called scalable mesh. And the benefit of that is it'll hold the high resolution, high density of the mesh, or as you zoom out, it'll lower it and be a lot more computer friendly to your area because this data sets can get massive on you. But one thing I really like about it is the detail you get around your curves versus some of the other software that we use like Pix4D. This does a lot cleaner job with those kind of details when you're doing the digital terrain models and as-builds.
So now we're going to kind of look at some of the other things that we've been able to do since we kind of started our program here. Like Nicole said during the introduction, I do incident management for our cabinet, which we work a lot with police, fire, EMS, and emergency management. Justin and I were asked by Lee County Emergency Management to come to Lee County to a section of nowhere that we went to help look for a lost person. A gentleman had left, and they really didn't know where he was at. And this particular section of the county was practically inaccessible due to some flooded areas. So they were not able to get over this ravine to see if the gentleman had fallen over next to where his vehicle was. So we were able to take our drones over there and systematically go through that area. And if you can kind of see here on this next slide, one of our EVOs we have embedded in some trees. We were able to go down and just look for this guy and determine that he was not at the bottom of that cliff. And that's not necessarily a transportation related issue, but those issues are issues that other state agencies face. And us as the cabinet, when we have the capabilities to help other agencies in those situations, we should do so, as well as when we ask them for help several times, they come and are willing to help us. So we've been able to help with emergency management on several applications. I guess the last thing that we're going to talk about is we have, like I mentioned earlier, partnered with KSP on the photogrammetry training. We set up a couple of training days with them every year, and we go out and we'll pick a scene, and they call a scene, we call a project, but we'll pick an area and we'll just map it, and we'll see how my data turns out against. This is Jerry Jones from Post 11. He's actually from the critical incident response team in Frankfurt, but he works out of Post 11. And I'll just take my data and compare it to Jerry's, and we'll see, if mine is more accurate, if his is more accurate, and then we'll compare as to why is mine different than his, and we'll get just a better idea of what we can do to ask the Commonwealth of Kentucky to perform better outputs with drones.
And a lot of it's just simply sharing ideas, methods, sequences, seeing one way is faster than doing it another way. Things like that, it just really helps having that relationship.
So I guess we're up to questions, and I hope there are some.
Yes, if you all have any questions, you can put it in the chat box, or you can take yourself off mute and ask them the questions.
Dang,
Morning,
Nicole, you
gentlemen.
left them speechless.
Yeah, you did. Thank you all
worries.
for joining us this morning. I do find it interesting that you are working with KSP because I know in working with Tim, Traffic Incident Management, there have been a lot of discussion about construction and reconstruction of crashes. So that's interesting that you all are working in partnership with that.
Jason has been super helpful with getting us involved in anything that we can get involved in.
Yeah, I think that's another great resource. Nicole, I don't know if you want to take it. John Baker is asking what are some costs for the actual drones and then the cost for some of the softwares you all discussed?
The Phantom, mostly, I'll do the software side of it. The software varies tremendously. We use Pix4D as our base. I'm not sure the yearly fee, but I believe the overall fee for a perpetual license was about six
Yeah,
grand.
it's like $6,000 a seat. So
Yeah.
you essentially
Yeah.
buy that once and you have unlimited use for Pix4D. And that's the main photogrammetry software that we use and that KSB uses as well. The drones themselves, the little Evo drones, the orange ones, like I was showing, we were flying in the trees. The first edition of that we got for like $1,200. Those are great recon drones for just our like inspection crews to go out and fly projects, and that they just want to get like a video or some random photos of things. The Phantom 4 RTK, you're getting closer to the $10,000 mark, but you're able to do mapping and those high resolution maps with it. When you want to get into the Matrice 300, like the newest one we had the upward facing gimbal and all that, as that drone sits, when we put it up in the air with everything that we have, it's about $50,000. So it's a very wide range. I know DJI makes some, the Mavic Mini that you can get around $600. I think we have that on contract, but the camera quality is just not what we need for it. And to be honest, we were able to acquire a lot of our stuff on a federal grant, so the cabinet wasn't necessarily out for a lot of that. So we were very fortunate in that aspect.
That M300, just the benefits of being able to see it further for the longer distance. It's got interchangeable, the batteries can be changed, that's swapped out. It's amazing how they have increased over time. The resolutions go.
It has dual remotes, and Justin can stand in one area and fly at a mile, and I can be another mile on down, see the drone, take control of the drone from my controller, fly it on. Justin can get in the vehicle and drive to another location, take control of the drone again. So we can essentially just keep flying. It has its benefits, but it's not out. It's weighty cost.
Yeah, sometimes we'll go to just pull the Phantom 4 RTK out for a smaller area. So it's
one of the things that we're trying to document for the cabinet is kind of what different crews, different job duties which drones would work better for those folks. And that way everybody don't have to buy every one of these and just kind of mess with them. We've tried to do that for folks. And I mean, honestly, a construction inspector that's watching our Kentucky 461 project doesn't need a Matrice 300 out there for day-to-day use.
any more questions? No, we have not done any drone LiDAR yet. I'm trying to get into that point. We're basically doing photo LiDAR, but I would love to get into the drone LiDAR side of it.
DJI has developed it's called the L1. It's their perpetual LiDAR unit that goes on the Matrice 300. And we're working with some folks in central office to acquire that. It's not been made available to us yet, but the cost of it is roughly $18,000 to $20,000. So, that's going to be on top of the 50,000 that we already have in the Matrice. So I'm not going to say that that'll be a no, but I think that'll be an uphill battle for us to acquire that, because with the accuracy that we're acquiring through the photogrammetry versus the LiDAR, it's just, I don't know that the benefits are going to outweigh the cost yet. Any other questions?
We can fly, so weather related. Thanks, John. So we've flown in snow. We can fly in a light rain. That the M300 has an IP rating of like 47. It can take a little bit of a rain. It can take actually a pretty decent amount of rain. I just don't want to push it on the camera and the cost of the system. But essentially, if there's rain, you're not going to have the visibility that you're required to have Part 107. Usually you're not going to have the cloud ceiling height. So there's some other things that just because a drone can hold up in rain doesn't mean the environmental conditions allow you to fly per Part 107. But
it also gets you back into the cost of the drone. We have been asked to document a flood in one instance. It was a roadway that was going to be severely damaged by a flood. So we were able to take our Evo 1 down there, and it, like I said, it was like $1,200, and it was on a grant. And we made really clear that there's a very good chance that this drone is going to go down, which obviously the drone would be going down over a flooded section of a field, and it was relatively safe. We checked we had appropriate sight. We were able to see cloud ceilings. Everything was good. So we flew the drone, and it was raining, and it came back. We were very tickled with it. But I think when I talked to our engineer about it at the time, I told her that there was an 80% chance that the drone was going to end up in the water, and they were okay with that at that point because of the need of the documentation for that particular flooding event.
And the newer drones they'll actually self-warm the batteries, self-heat the batteries. So you can fly in a lot colder conditions than you used to be able to. The snow, the only issue we had with the snow was the snow would hit the sensors, and basically the drone would think it was about to hit something. So you'd have to turn the obstacle avoidance off. But other than that, it didn't affect the camera quality. Point cloud worked out great.
And we ended up inside of our trailer, we kind of set up some areas that we were able to control the temperature in there. So we can throw those batteries inside that trailer and let them warm up or cool off, whichever way is, applicable at the time, and get the drones back up in the air pretty quick.
So we have a question on the RTK drone versus the regular Phantom 4. My prior company, I spent about 2 to 3 years using the Phantom 4 Pro versus now we only have the RTK drones. I wouldn't go back for love nor money on it. It's amazing. One simple thing is the control of the drone in the air is within about a couple inches versus 3 to 5 feet with the Phantom 4. So if you're flying in a tight area, the GPS signal will wave a little bit. It will also not fight the wind as well. But when you return to home with the RTK drone with it enabled, it will land literally on a quarter back to the same spot versus the Phantom 4 Pro will usually land within about 1 foot to 2 feet. When you're trying to deal with efficiencies on doing mapping roadways, we can fly the Phantom 4 RTK with a ground control point around 700 to 800 feet versus the Phantom 4. You really need to be about 200 feet with your ground control points. The accuracy, you can still achieve similar accuracies as with the RTK and the Phantom 4, but to do so, you've got to really use a lot more ground control points to keep that model down. Because with the RTK drone, we actually connect it to the CORS network. So the position of that camera is known to a higher degree just the Phantom 4's GPS system.
And our whole view has always been, we want to go with fewer ground control points as we can go with, because if we're actually having to go out and survey it, then it kind of defeating the purpose of having the drone in the first place.
So I have used the Phantom 4 for years and got through it. But when you're dealing with these longer projects with the KYTC, it's a lot more efficient to use the RTK enabled drone. It's the same camera quality as well with the Phantom 4 Pro and Phantom 4 RTK.
Anybody got anything else?
Good question so far.
Are you all going across the state doing this with other districts? Are you just focused in District 8?
Right now we're in District 8. We go to any district that asks us. We've been, I think we've been to 5 of the districts so far to do jobs. We did we actually did this presentation for the leadership a few months ago, and offered it to all the districts. And I don't know that they've seen our deliverables good enough. So we're going to send out some of our deliverables to these folks and kind of show them what capabilities we have, because our goal is actually to get other people across the state, to doing this, not to just go do it everywhere, but we're happy to go anywhere to help people get started or to do a large project for anyone.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if your goal is if the cabinet's goal is to have individuals in every district or maybe every other district have this knowledge and that you all have.
We have been told that the goal is to have individuals in each district with capabilities of doing certain tasks, and then to have a couple of hubs in the state that would have a little bit extraordinary or for more extraordinary circumstances. So that's what we've been told.
And even more long-term, we're trying to get on some of these massive projects, the main inspector to have access to a drone themselves so they can fly weekly.
And it's realistic. We all the time on these construction projects, we're always getting a piece of equipment added to it, and just stuff like that. So I mean, they can have one added in on a project cost, and then that inspector, he has that drone and he can fly it every day to document anything that he needs to.
And I'm sure
the only thing we really have to look at is storage.
Yeah, and this technology is changing and advancing so much as well.
Oh, absolutely. When we first started this, they told us to put all of our stuff on our network drive, which is 4 terabytes, and we filled that up in a matter of weeks. Now I would hate to see how much we pay a month per box, but it's got to be outrageous.
Wonderful. This has been great information. Any more questions for Luke and Justin? Nicole, any dying questions you see?
I don't see any.
And take yourself off mute too if you have a question you want to ask.
Yes.
All right, you just wowed us all with this great expertise.
We appreciate the opportunity to present this.